Professor Peter R. Giancola, of the Psychology Department of the University of Kentucky College of the Arts, and his former graduate student have found just the most delicious little piece of information. They found that there is a really interesting connection between spirituality and violence and alcohol consumption. They did not see this coming, but they found that the more aggressive you are when you are drinking has a direct relation to how religious you are when you're not drinking. So here's what they found. The preliminary study contained 520 subjects ranging in age from 21 to 35 from the Lexington and Central Kentucky region. After determining each individual's degree of spiritual belief, subjects received an alcohol or non-alcoholic beverage. As would be expected, results of the study indicated that violence decreased as spirituality increased in persons who received the non-alcoholic beverage. However, quite unexpectedly, violence actually increased as spirituality increased in persons who received the alcoholic beverage. So people who believe in whatever your religious belief is, a lot of "thems are fighting words" comments started the more beer you started drinking.
This study is done in Lexington in Central Kentucky. So I'm surprised that they were surprised that religious folks get their dander up when drinking in that area. But so let's break this down. First of all, the good news is religious people are less violent than the average cat when they're not drinking. So that's good. That's good, okay? And understand that the study, they said, look, this is the first study. These are our first results. There needs to be preliminary. We need to look at this a lot more so it's not definitive, and you can't say that there's a definitive correlation or anything like that, or causation, I should say. And even if you had a correlation, it wouldn't mean causation. You knew that. You knew that. Okay, anyway. So they were not studying religion. They were studying the alcohol, and then they were checking for many different factors, and they were surprised to find out that the factor that popped out was if you were more spiritual, whatever religion, whatever spirituality, okay, that if you drank more, you got more violent. That was the factor that made a big difference. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, and why do you think that is?
My first guess now, and obviously we're guessing now, we gave you the facts and now our opinions. Our opinions, right. They're pent up, right? They're bottling it in, and that's partly maybe why they're not as violent when they're not drinking. That's good. They're less violent than the average guy, right? But then once you get a couple beers in you, your true nature comes out, right? And so you're like you wouldn't like me when I'm drinking, right? So, and I think a lot of the frustration that's been pent up because they're all buttoned up, right, comes out when they're drinking. I would imagine that I'd be surprised if they weren't also more aggressive in other ways when they're drinking.
Like what?
Sexually aggressive. Do you see what I'm saying? Especially because, and I don't say that as any kind of slight, I'm just saying it because they're so pent up sexually. If they're actually following their religion and etc., because almost all the religions say, don't have sex, don't have sex, don't have sex. Right. Especially if you're not married, obviously.
And then when that prefrontal cortex shuts down when you're drinking, then you just go for your primal urges.
Exactly. And I have a secondary theory that related to exactly that, which is that a lot of religious people will say, but what if we don't have religion? Everybody would go nuts, and you wouldn't have since you wouldn't be scared of hell, you wouldn't have any reason to not do anything bad. And most atheists and agnostics are puzzled by that because we're like, we don't need to be scared of the sky god to do the right thing, right? But I think some of them do need that. Right. They're like, well, I mean, if you let me do whatever I wanted, of course I'd go nuts.
Anarchy.
Right? I would want to do violence. I'd want to do other things, like whatever they might be, sexual or otherwise, right? Right. And the only thing keeping me in check is I'm scared of Beelzebub. Right? Right. So they use religion to control their id. When you put in add in alcohol, their id comes out, and it ain't pretty. Id ain't pretty. Get it? No. I didn't even intend that. Here all week. Okay. Anyway.
You did it. See, my theory was much simpler. Yours actually is way more interesting. I just assumed that these bar brawls or whatever were starting because of religion. I just assumed that it was all coming from, did you just insult my religious beliefs? And people's, they always say, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about somebody's God. And it's because those are two things that people take so personally, you cannot rationalize them most of the time. It's not, okay, I understand that that's not what you believe, that's what I believe, but let's be friends. It usually doesn't work that way, especially if you had a few drinks and you get emotional.
So that might be more true if I'm in the room and I'm agitating them. Okay, but I'm not sure the details of how they conducted this study.
Right.
I don't know what they mean by more violence and how they track that.
Right.
So we wouldn't know that part of it. But another part of it is, and again, I'm sorry for being a little insulting to religious people here in some of the ways that I'm analyzing it. If you disagree with my opinion on
fun.
it, that's okay. Yeah, then they'll fight me anyway, right? They'll get drunk and hit me, right? Anyway, but they didn't even test Muslims. Now they're not supposed to get drunk, but if they do, watch out. Okay. Anyways, it's now. So to continue being insulting, if you are operating in the faith-based world and not the logic-based world, right, and the reason-based world, if you get drunk, you might become even more unreasonable.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
A person who's not mired in the business or anchored by the reason-based world, add a little bit of alcohol, and you might get a person who's really unreasonable.
Right.
So those are some of our pop psychology theories on why that might be the case, but either way, the study exists, and it should be studied more, but it appears to be a phenomenon. And you tell us why religious people get more violent when they drink.
Yeah, and it's not, I don't know why I love it, and I'm not, whatever. I just love it.
Sorry, she loves it. Okay, and if you don't love it, you're gonna have to grin and bear it.
Right.
Okay.